Interpretive opportunity. There's 3-item bin divide, which is knowledge of the audience, knowledge of the resources and appropriate techniques. Skills of a nature interpreter. An interpreter's knowledge of the resource, combined with their knowledge of the audience, can be shared through an appropriate technique to provide an interpretive opportunity. The better the interpreter's knowledge of resource and audience, and the more appropriate their techniques for presenting their knowledge to that audience, the more likely an opportunity will offered for the visitors to form their own personal connections with the resource. Knowledge of the resources. If interpreters are to properly translate the meanings of collection, artifacts and natural resources at a site, they must have enough knowledge of these resources to be able to speak clearly. Job of interpreters is to facilitate a connection between the interests of visitors and the meaning of the resource. Interpretation relies on multidisciplinary knowledge to provide different audiences with the relevant and meaningful connections to park resources. Interpreters at all levels must have a thorough understanding of the underpinning research, tangible features, associated concepts, context, relationships, systems, processes, human values, and other meanings associated with a resource. Interpreters must also understand multiple points of view regarding the resource as well as the park's past and current conditions, and possess the skills to interpret them for all visitors. Knowledge of the audience. To provide relevant opportunities for visitors to connect with the meanings and significance of a site, an interpreter must know about their audience. Without solid knowledge of the audience, interpreters will not be able to meet their needs. It is important to understand and respect the reasons why visitors come to our places, and to meet them where they are in their understanding of the value of the resource. Good knowledge of the audience enables us to recognize when to let the visitor and the resource interact on their own, and when, how, and where it is appropriate to use interpretation to help them discover new or renewed meanings in the resource. Appropriate techniques. To link the tangible resources of a site with intangible concepts they represent, appropriate interpretive techniques must be used. Using techniques like storytelling or comparisons, if appropriate for this specific services, can provide opportunities for connections to the resource which may motivate visitors care about, and perhaps even care for the resource. The selection of techniques must always be based on specific program objectives and on knowledge of the strengths and weaknesses of each techniques. In addition, knowledge of both the audience and the resource is necessary to determine the appropriateness of the technique. There are various factors about the audience to consider when selecting techniques, some of which are more obvious. Age, native language, accessibility issues, and the social composition of the group, family, friends, strangers, are some of the first things to consider.
Next, we learn about qualities of interpretation. There's 2 types of qualities of interpretation, which is interpretation is enjoyable and interpretation is relevant. Interpretation is enjoyable. Techniques include using active verbs, using exaggeration to make a point, size, time scale, etc., engaging people's sense, or focusing on a specific individual, who could be real or fictitious, in order to tell a story or make a point. Interpretation is relevant. One of the crucial aspects of interpretation is being relevant, being able to relate what you're saying to the visitor in a way they can actually understand it. Being meaningful, the info you present must have a context, so the audience can understand it in relation to something they already know. This fosters an intellectual connection. Being personal, you must connect the info to something the audience cares about, not just knows about. This fosters an emotional connection. Contrast qualities of interpretation. Interpretation is thematic. All good interpretive programs have a theme, and it is easy to incorporate a theme into any program or activity. A theme is not something to be afraid of, rather it is something to help you and your audience remember the importance of what you are saying. The definition of a theme is pretty straightforward. IT is short, simple, complete sentence with one idea, and it reveals the overall purpose of your program or activity. The theme is different than the topic of your program. The topic is merely the subject, whereas the theme expresses the main idea of the program. For example, the topic of your program might be geology, and the theme might be the story of Grand Teton National Park is written on the landscape. Interpretation is organized. By organizing your program using a simple outline, introduction, body, and conclusion, your audience will find it easy to follow and understand what you're saying, as well as to remember what you do say. Next, we move to topic attributes of a nature interpreter. 1. Enthusiasm for natural world. 2. Articulate and nature interpreter. 3. Engage with others. 4. Passion for learning. 5. Creative. 6. Broad knowledge of natural world. 7. Spontaneity. In this topic, students should be able to demonstrate effective communication skills and attributes of a nature interpreter in nature interpretation activities, which is CLO 3. And students been able to practice effective communication skills individually or as member of a team with supervisor, peers and subordinates in delivering high quality of service in tourism and recreational fields, which on PLO 4.